Welcome back, everyone. Today's story is one that really stuck with me, and I think it might do the same for you. So let's dive right in. My name is Dan, and I'm 52 years old. I run a small used car dealership, one I built from scratch with my own two hands. Back when I started, I didn't have much. Just a few $1,000s saved from long hours at my dad's old repair shop. He passed away not long after I finished high school, leaving me with little more than a few tools and the lessons he taught me. That it wasn't much, but I took it and worked my way up. I spent years doing double shifts, saving every penny. Gradually, I turned that empty lot into a full-fledged dealership. I've never been rich, and I don't live in a flashy house, but that doesn't matter to me. I'm a straightforward guy. People around here know me and trust me. And that's worth more to me than any luxury car or high-rise office. Then there's Sophia, my wife of 25 years. I met her at a friend's holiday party back in the day. One of those social gatherings I never cared much for, but my Mike insisted I'd go. She was there with her friends, just starting her second year of law school. Right away, I could tell she was different, ambitious, clever, and beautiful in a way that caught everyone's attention. It turned out she'd been raised by her Margaret after her parents died in an accident when she was just a kid. Her Margaret passed away while Lionel was in college, leaving her on her own. I could see that weight on her, and we connected that night. We talked for hours about life, our struggles, and our goals. She had big dreams, and at the time, I couldn't believe someone like her would even look twice at me. But we clicked after dating for a while. She hinted that she was ready for something more serious. I picked up on it, got a ring, and proposed. Not long after, she said yes, and we built a life together. It wasn't a fairy tale marriage by any stretch, but it was solid. I supported her through law school. I was working extra hours to cover her tuition and living expenses. When she graduated, she landed a junior position at a small law firm. And over the years, she worked her way up while I kept expanding my business. We had two sons, Ethan and Lucas, who are both grown now and living their own lives. For the last 25 years, I thought we were settled, that we had a good thing. I'm not saying it was fireworks every day, but I thought we'd found a place of stability, a partnership built on trust and hard work. To me, that's what marriage is, a steady, reliable partnership, or at least that's what I thought it was. Then last year, Sophie got a job offer at a prestigious law firm downtown. It was a big opportunity, higher pay, a fancier title, and an office on one of those top-floor suites overlooking the whole city. She was thrilled. Her new boss, Victor, was a high-profile lawyer known for winning major cases. He was the type who thrived on the spotlight, someone who loved being in the news and having his face plastered on billboards. Sophie couldn't stop talking about him at first. She'd go on and on about how brilliant he was, how driven, and how much she was learning from him. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured she just admired him. After all, I trusted her. We'd been together for over 2 decades. Why did I do that? Why would I have any reason to doubt her? But slowly, things started to change. At first, it was subtle, little shifts that I might not have noticed if I weren't paying close attention. She started dressing sharper, wearing clothes that seemed more polished, more expensive. She'd come home with a faint smell of cologne that definitely wasn't mine. And when I'd asked about her day, she'd brush it off like it didn't matter. Then her work hours got longer. There were more late nights. More work events on the weekends. I'd often see her texting on her phone with a little smirk like she was hiding something. Then she started taking calls privately, stepping out of the room, lowering her voice to a whisper. I'm not the type to jump to conclusions, and I'm definitely not a jealous person, but we've been together long enough for me to notice when something's off. You don't spend over 2 decades with someone and not pick up on changes like that. But I kept quiet and waited, thinking maybe things would settle back to normal. I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. But the more I watched, the more obvious it became. Something was going on, and she wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. Weeks went by, and I finally reached a point where I couldn't ignore it any longer. One night, she came home late from another work event. I sat her down and asked her calmly and directly if there was something going on. I didn't raise my voice or accuse her outright. I just asked her. At first, she looked surprised, like she didn't know what to say. She tried to dodge the question, throwing out excuses, but I kept pressing her. It took about half an hour back and forth before she finally admitted it. She sat there, staring at me, like she just told me she'd forgotten to pick up milk from the store. Not that she'd been sleeping with another man. She was seeing someone, she said. I asked her if he had a name, And that's when she finally said it, Victor. Her almighty big shot boss Victor. The one she'd been idolizing for months. She didn't even flinch when she said it. The silence between us felt like a weight pressing down on my chest, but she wasn't done. She seemed ready to get everything off her chest. She told me she needed someone on her level. Someone who was ambitious and matched her standards. According to her, I had stayed the same all these years while she had grown. Apparently, I was stuck. Too predictable. Too content to just exist. She needed more. She needed someone who could take charge, who could match her ambition. She didn't even try to sugarcoat it. She called Victor an alpha. She actually used that word, and when she said it, it sounded rehearsed like it was a term Victor had probably fed her himself. She kept going, her voice steady, as if she were explaining a fact that I just wasn't grasping. Victor was everything I wasn't, she said. He dressed sharply, looked like a man of importance. A man who could give her the finer things, unlike me. She said I didn't care about appearances. She looked me up and down as she said it, as if my practical clothes were suddenly embarrassing. Victor, she told me, was a real man. A man who understood her drive, who was neat, successful, and a provider. That, apparently, was what she deserved. I sat there listening to her, half feeling like I'd stepped into some alternate universe. This woman, my wife of 25 years, was telling me that my loyalty, my consistency, my hard work, everything I'd built for her and for our family, meant nothing because I hadn't upgraded. I was just some small-town guy with a small business and a small life, and that didn't fit her image anymore. Then she hit me with what she must have thought was the kicker. She had a solution. She said we could stay married for appearances. She'd keep seeing Victor, and I'd just have to accept it. She actually used a word arrangement, like this was some sort of business contract. According to her, Victor was open to this arrangement. If you can accept it, she added, with a pathetic attempt at sympathy in her eyes, Victor has a team of 20 lawyers. He'll make sure you lose everything. She said it like she was offering friendly advice. As if she was concerned for me, hoping I'd just be reasonable and let her carry on with a new life. While I stayed in mine, playing along like some fool, I looked her dead in the eye and said good luck. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I just told her good luck. Then I got up, left the room, and went upstairs without another word. She just sat there, watching me go, clearly not expecting that response. Maybe she thought I'd beg, or that I'd try to fight for her, but I wasn't about to grovel for someone who couldn't even respect our marriage. I had said all I needed to say. She called him immediately after I walked out of the room. Her voice was low, a bit shaky, like she was trying to keep her emotions in check. Yes, Victor, she was saying. I told him everything. No, I didn't even try to lie. I told him the truth, that I deserved more than I wanted someone like him. A real man. There was a pause. And then I heard a voice on the other end, faint but unmistakable, dripping with arrogance. You told him what we agreed on, right? He said. That he's a lucky man to have had you this long. That he's not exactly been satisfying you? Yes, she replied, hesitating just a little. But it hurt, 25 years together. It's not easy. Dan's been a good man. He supported me through school, took care of everything, raised our kids. When she reminded me of all that, I couldn't help feeling guilty. Victor cut in dismissive. Guilty? Sophie, come on. That guy's a joke. He's a mechanic who's never even tried to give you what you need. He's boring. Small time. You deserve a real alpha who can take care of you. Yes, you're right, she said, though she still sounded conflicted. I told him all that, but he barely reacted. Just wish me good luck and left. Victor laughed. He's gonna have to get used to this arrangement, Sophie. He'll just have to learn his place. Then he added smugly. You said you love my big. His voice trailing off with obvious pride. You told me I'd take you places that the old guy never could. Did you say? Or did you not say? That you've never had sex like this before? Yes, I did. She answered almost breathlessly. But, I didn't have that experience when I married Dan. He's gentle, He's so different. You're bossy, demanding. It just swept me away. That's right, Victor replied smugly. And I'll keep sweeping you away, lover. You've got an extra dimension now. I'm the top dog here, and he's just gonna have to accept it. The next morning, I left for work early. I wasn't about to sit around for more of her justifications, or the pitting looks she'd started throwing my way. Like I was some poor fool who just didn't get it. She'd made her choice, and if she thought I was going to quietly sit back while she moved on with Victor, she had another thing coming. Around noon that same day, just as I was sorting out the new shipment on the lot, Victor showed up in person. He walked right into my office like he owned the place, dressed in one of those overpriced suits that probably cost more than my mortgage. A smirk plastered on his face as he took a seat across from me, without even asking. He leaned back, crossing his legs as if settling into his throne. "Dan," he said, "I think it's time we talked." Man to man, I could already tell this was going to be something. He started talking, going on and on about his vision for the situation, as if he were laying out some brilliant business plan instead of the destruction of my marriage. He spoke like he was some wise sage, blessing me with his insights. He went on about how he and Lionel had connected on a deeper level, how they were true equals, and how he could provide for her in ways that I never could. Then he looked me straight in the eye, a smug little smirk playing on his lips, and said, "You're a good guy, Dan. But men like me, we lead. We know how to handle things." He paused, letting it sink in before leaning in closer and adding, "You don't seem like the type who put up a fuss, but I'll spell it out for you anyway. She wants to be with a real alpha, a man who knows how to take charge." I could feel my blood boiling, but I didn't say a word. I just let him continue, keeping my face neutral. Victor didn't stop there, though. He placed a thick stack of papers on my desk and gave them a casual tap. "Here's the deal," he said, flashing me a patronizing smile. "Divorce papers, restraining orders, the whole package. Your wife's already signed, by the way." He paused, seeming to relish every second of his little performance. "It's best for everyone if you just sign and keep it civil," he continued. "We don't want any unpleasantness. And let's be real, Dan. There's no need for you to act out. You don't want to be that guy who can't accept reality." Then he leaned in, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Besides," he said, his tone full of fake sympathy, "this way you can keep whatever scraps of dignity you've got left. She's still willing to let you stick around. Play the loyal companion on weekends. It's not like she's going to cut you off completely, so be smart about it, Dan. Don't make this harder than it has to be." I stayed quiet, letting him talk, giving him just enough silence to think he had the upper hand. He seemed to feed off it, looking at me with a kind of patronizing smirk. I imagined he'd been perfecting his whole life. Then finally, I stood up, took a slow, deliberate step toward him. And before he even registered what was happening, I drove my fist right into a smug face. There was a satisfying crunch as my knuckles connected with his nose. And he staggered back, a look of complete shock on his face, blood starting to trickle down his chin. He clutched his nose, stumbling backward, eyes wide, as if he couldn't quite believe what had just happened. "That," I said, my voice calm and cold, "was just a start." He barely had time to process my words before I reached out, grabbed him by the collar, and delivered an uppercut to his gut. He doubled over, gasping for air, and slumped down, clutching his stomach. He was sprawled on the floor, struggling to catch his breath, and I crouched down, making sure he could see every bit of anger and resolve in my eyes. "Here's a little lesson for you about what a real man is," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "A real man doesn't need to throw his weight around to feel important. He doesn't go into another man's home, try to steal his life, and call himself an alpha. A real man stands by his word, his family, and what he's built. Something you wouldn't understand if it hit you in the face. Or maybe now you do." I watched him struggle, his face twisted in pain, but he wasn't getting any sympathy from me. I stepped back, letting him catch his breath just long enough to think he was safe. And another thing, I pressed my boot down on his outstretched hand, feeling the bones cracked beneath my weight. He let out a yell, pure pain in his voice, and tried to pull his hand back, but I held firm. "If you think you're going to walk out of here and call the cops, go right ahead. Maybe they'll put me away for a few years. But when I get out, we'll have this conversation again, and I'll be a hell of a lot meaner than I am now." I could see the fear in his eyes. The dawning realization that he wasn't in control, that his threats and his so-called power meant nothing here. He was trapped, just another guy who thought his suit made him invincible, who never imagined he'd face consequences from a man he looked down on. "Now get up," I said, stepping back, watching as he struggled to his feet, still cradling his broken nose and clutching his hand, "and get out of my sight." He didn't need telling twice. He staggered out, bloody, broken, and humiliated. Without so much as a backward glance, I shut the door behind him, feeling the rage that had been simmering for days finally stop to ease. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Later that day, lie in a cold. "Victor? Victor, I thought you'd be back hours ago. Where are you?" Her voice was anxious, a sharp edge of fear in it. On the other end, Victor's voice sounded groggy, muffled. "I'm in the hospital," he said, his tone strained. I've been here for hours. Dan didn't take it easy on me. She gasped, barely able to believe what she was hearing. What happened? Were you in some kind of accident? No, Victor replied, his tone bitter. I went to talk to him alone like we planned. He broke my nose, my right hand, a couple of ribs, and maybe even my cheekbone. There was a slight tremor in his voice. She was silent, her shock almost audible. I don't believe it. He's never been violent. That's not like him. Well, believe it, Victor snapped. I have the x-rays to prove it. He paused, then let out a dry, painful chuckle. Your husband isn't as gentle as you thought. Lioness' voice softened, almost pleading. Is there any way you cannot go to the police? Dan doesn't deserve to end up in prison over this. Victor sighed heavily. The police have already been here, Lioness. But I told him it was a hit and run. He warned me if I pressed charges, he'd make me regret it tenfold when he got out. Frankly, I'm not looking to test him on that. There was another pause. And when Lioness spoke again, her voice was full of disbelief. I can't believe it. Not my Dan. Victor's voice turned dark and resentful. You didn't see his face as he beat me up, Lioness. He told me this was only the beginning if I didn't back off. I'm not taking any more chances with him. She tried to keep her tone steady, but I could hear the desperation seeping through. So that's it then. After everything, you're just giving up. There was silence on the line. Then Victor's voice came through, hard and flat. I don't have a choice. I'm doing what I need to do to survive. Lioness stayed on the line for a moment. Then she heard the click as he hung up. There was only silence after that. Her so-called upgrade had just crumbled to dust right in front of her. The next day, Lioness showed up at the hospital to see Victor. She was a mess. Her hair pulled back hastily. Dark circles under her eyes. She found him in a recovery room, propped up in bed with his arm in a cast, his face bruised and swollen. Victor looked up as she walked in, and for a moment his eyes flicked with something close to irritation. Victor, she started, her voice tense. You have to help me. I drove around until 8 o'clock last night. Didn't know if it was safe to go home. I tried calling Dan to ask, but he never picked up. When I finally got the courage to go back, I couldn't get in. The locks were changed. Victor just stared at her, a hint of impatience crossing his battered face as she continued. I stayed at my friend's place last night. This morning, I tried to check out a bank account, and they are all empty. None of my credit cards work either. You have to help me. Can you get one of the divorce attorneys at work to start the process of getting Dan removed from the house? For a moment, Victor looked like he was considering it. Then he shook his head. No, he said flatly. No to all of that. She blinked. Stunned. What? What do you mean? No. He let out a bit of sigh. If I use company resources or assets to help you, it will only give your husband more reason to come after me again. In fact, I think it's best if I keep myself out of this entirely. He posed, adjusting himself in bed with a winds of pain. I'll pay you an extra 4 weeks in severance, Lioness. But that's it. Pack up, leave today. And if you see Dan, tell him you were fired. That's all I'm willing to do. She gaped at him, barely able to believe what she was hearing. Didn't you hear me? Dan cleaned me out. I don't have money. I don't have a job. And you're saying you won't even help me. Victor's face was hard, unapologetic. I'm sorry, Lioness. But you didn't see the look in your husband's eyes when he beat me. He's 10 times a man I am in that regard. And frankly, I don't need a cheating wife in my life. I think we're done here. Her expression hardened as she stared at him. Eyes narrowing. You're pathetic. You know that. Yesterday, you were bragging about being an alpha male. Today, you're trembling in fear that my husband, who you say is 10 times a man you are, is hiding under your bed. She paused, her voice dropping to a scornful whisper. How could I ever have thought I was trading up by ending up with someone like you? You're delusional if you think I ever took a pathetic coward like you seriously. Victor's eyes flicked, but he didn't respond. She turned on her heel and walked out, not sparing him another glance, leaving him bruised, broken, and defeated in every way. That same day, Lioness sat alone in her car on the side of the road, checking her phone over and over. Every credit card had been declined, and she was down to her last bit of cash. She knew that before long. She'd be out of gas too. I'd made sure to cut off any support she could rely on. Cruel, maybe, but effective. I knew she was headed toward the town where our sons lived, probably hoping they'd take her in. They'd always been quick to respond to her messages, rarely letting an hour pass before answering. But now, as she stared at her phone, there was only silence. Lioness sighed, put the phone down, and got out of the car. Straightening her skirt, she walked over to the side of the road and raised her thumb, hoping for a ride. After a few minutes, she spotted a familiar beat-up van approaching. When it pulled up next to her, she froze, recognizing me in the driver's seat. Panic and disbelief flashed in her eyes. I stepped out in motion to the passenger seat. "We need to talk," I said simply. She hesitated, but finally got in, looking at me like I were a stranger. She looked worn out, like the last few days had aged her. I didn't waste time. "Here's what's going to happen," I began. "You're going to file for divorce. There will be no alimony, no claim to my assets. Everything I have stays with me, and everything you have stays with you. Any jewelry I ever bought for you, you'll return. You can list whatever you want as a reason for the divorce. I don't care. As long as you're out of my life." I let my words settle before continuing. "Once the divorce is finalized, you'll leave town and not look back. You're welcome to contact our kids if they want to see you, but only in my absence and only on their terms. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, your things will be packed and ready for you to pick up from the house. Be there on time. If they are not gone by 11 o'clock, they'll be burned. Am I clear?" She nodded, looking at me like she'd just seen a ghost. "When can I expect the papers?" She whispered, "It'll take a week." "You have 5 days," I replied. She nodded again, her gaze unfocused, staring somewhere far away. I looked at her one last time, pale and shaken, finally understanding what she'd thrown away. I allowed myself a small smile, then asked her to step out. She got out, and I drove away without a backward glance, leaving her alone by the roadside. The next morning at 10:30, she showed up to pick up her things. 5 days later, the divorce documents were on my desk. The reason she listed? Irreconcilable differences. I had to laugh. A few months later, it was final. I was free. Do I have any regrets? Maybe a little. I regret that Sophie couldn't understand the meaning of loyalty. I regret that she decided I was somehow beneath her, that I couldn't improve myself enough to fit her new image. And I'm sure she never realized the risk she took by messing with a man like me. Someone who's seen what it looks like to stand firm and defend what he's built. Would I have tried to save the marriage? Maybe, if she hadn't threatened me and tried to treat me as an obstacle to her new life. But she made her choice, and that was my point of no return. I'll pick up the pieces and move forward, even if it means walking this road alone. Maybe that's how my story ends, just me by myself. But I'd rather face that reality than waste another second with someone who never understood the value of trust and commitment.